Good morning. Welcome to this Big Buyers Working Together webinar entitled Collaborating for Clean Energy. This is a webinar delivered to you by the Big Buyers Working Together project, which is a European Commission project, and focusing on the sustainable solar PV community of practice within the project. We've got a really exciting lineup today to share with you some of the work that's been going on within the community and give you an opportunity to ask questions and to hear the experiences of the current participants, hopefully to entice you to join, to see what's in it for you, and to give you the opportunity to ask questions of those participating, should you so wish. The agenda today is on the slide here. It's fairly straightforward, hopefully very interesting. I will give you a quick overview of the Big Buyers Working Together project. We will then go into more detail about the community itself working on sustainable solar PV from the leader of that community, Michiel Mensink, who is a project leader and management advisor from RVO and Energist in the Netherlands. And then we will hear from two of the participants of the community of practice, two of the cities working on this topic within the project. So from the city of Cologne, first of all, from Josje Muybreck and Uwe Koch from the city of Cologne, like I said, and then a presentation by the city of Amsterdam from Lucas Slot. Finally, we'll finish by sharing with you a presentation of the guidelines that have been presented or produced by this group and its forerunner, and give you information about how to contribute and to review and to provide feedback to those guidelines. Finally, we'll finish with an opportunity for you to ask questions. So I would encourage you to think about what you want to ask the speakers, but to save those questions for that slot at the end. There is the chat function, which you can use to post questions if you think about them as we go along, if that's easier for you. Alternatively, when we reach the question and answer section, you can raise your hand and we will give you the opportunity to open your microphone and contribute that way. The only other thing to mention is that my colleague Delfina is also online. You can find her behind the ICLE Europe account, and if you have any technical issues, you can send her a direct message in the chat, and hopefully we can try and solve them. So I will very briefly introduce Big Buyers Working Together, which launched in March 2023, is a project funded by the European Union through ICEMEA, and it's managed by Eurocities, by ICLE, for whom I work, and BME. There are 10 communities of practice within the Big Buyers Working Together, working on a really wide range of topics, all of which are implicated by public procurement within the city or the local administration, where we have communities of buyers coming together to try and work on challenges within that area to support the greater uptake of strategic public procurement related to that field. So you can see on the right-hand side, we have communities of practice as varied as health sustainability through to zero emission bus services and systems, circular construction, and the reason why you're here today, sustainable solar PV. So we will hear later about how the group is working on some of the challenges faced by public procurers when considering sustainable solar PV installations. The communities of practice are embedded on the Public Buyers Community platform. You can find a link here, but Delfina will also paste a link into the chat. And here, members of the community have access not only to events and news that is taking place within the sector, but also members-only areas for collaboration and to share documents that the community are working on together. Each community of practice within Big Buyers Working Together is bottom-up. It's driven by those participants of the communities to really ensure that the work that's being delivered addresses their needs and interests and supports them to address the challenges that they face in their day-to-day work. Participation is free, which is something everyone likes to hear, and we attempt to arrange a variety of activities for the community members which support them in the ambitions that they set out for their community of practice. So travelling and accommodation costs are covered by the project. Those activities can include market engagement, study visits to supplier sites, for example, or to visit each other cities to see what's going on in their own localities. Also run hackathons and do some of the work on document development and making sure that the members of the community can come together and collaborate and share good practice and lessons learned. Some of the benefits of your participation in a community of practice, and we will hear from the experiences of Cologne and Amsterdam shortly, but there are regular community of practice meetings, sharing updates and intelligence and some of the work that each of the members are undertaking. Market dialogue sessions or expert dialogue sessions, communicating with various experts or actors in the sector to help understand innovations and to understand how public procurers can develop knowledge and can interact with the market in such a way that enables them to buy better solar panels to meet their needs. As I mentioned, study expeditions, capacity building opportunities with experts, pitching sessions from suppliers, and then ultimately this all comes together in some form of collaboration for the buyers within that community.
Oh, yes.
And finally, or almost finally, as my time is about to expire, there are a number of ways for you to participate. So you can follow the Public Buyers platform. So here you can subscribe to the Sustainable Solar PV community, and we would encourage you to do so. Here you can register your interest to take part and then become a member of the community of practice. You can also subscribe to the European Commission's Public Procurement Gazette, a newsletter on all that's happening within the public procurement world, but with a large number of updates around work happening on the Big Buyers Working Together project as well. And you should contact us. If what you hear today over the course of the next 45 minutes piques your interest and you want to participate in this community of practice, we would love to have you on board, love for your expertise, love for your energy to be part of our community. You can contact us through big.buyers@eurocities.eu or reach me or my colleague Delphina on the email addresses on the slide shown here. But you have probably heard enough from me and want to hear more about what the community is actually doing and the experiences of the participants. So we'll now hand over to Michiel Mensink, who is the leader of this community of practice, who will share some insights about the work that's happened so far and the overall ambitions of the Sustainable Solar PV community.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Dominic. Great. There's the slides. Super, Delphina. Yeah, just let me start off with explaining a little bit about the goals of this community. And sorry. Yeah, so maybe it's just good to keep in mind that solar PV may become the #1 energy source. We don't know, of course, how this is going, and this will vary from country to country, but there are some experts that believe that solar PV may be the biggest. And whether it's the biggest or not, it's probably very likely that in most countries that we have in Europe that they will install far more solar panels than the amount that is currently installed. So there's a big amount that needs to be installed in the next 20, 30 years, and of course beyond. And also public buyers have a major role in this. And so what we think is, there's sort of a common goal that public buyers procure good quality PV systems, and that this is at a fair price and not too much hassle and effort. So to stimulate the rollout of the PV projects. So this is sort of one important overarching goal is how can we help as a community to can we help and stimulate public buyers to roll out PV projects. And then there's a second important point that I wanted to address briefly. And this is that there are quite some sustainability issues in current PV projects. So just looking at the PV modules, often we see that there's many low-cost PV modules. However, there are some sustainability issues. And this is, for instance, the carbon footprint, and I will share a bit more about that later. Also, there can be toxic materials present in many or most of the modules, like PFAS, the backsheet, lead in the solder tin, and antimony in the glass. And all these sort of hazardous materials do not even need to be there. So that's something that can be changed, and it's not even much more expensive. Also, second topic is the short lifespan. So in reality, in practice, many modules don't last so long. So often it's just 10 to 12 years. However, we hope, and it's possible, that they can last for 25 or 30 years. But that means you may need to ask some to get some criteria to ensure that that will happen. And then, of course, there's a forced labor, which is also has been widely in the news, in various reports about forced labor by Uyghurs in Xinjiang in China. So that's also a topic that we'd like to address. So secondly, as said, there are several more sustainable PV modules that can be procured at this moment. They have a lower carbon footprint, they don't have these toxic materials, they have a long lifespan and fair labor conditions. However, surely they're a little bit more expensive. The point is that there's a big information gap. So many buyers, public and private, are not so much aware of these sustainability issues and quality issues. And also, they're not so aware of what is available. Now, fourth point is that we see a big urgency because we see that in Europe, we're basically flooded with these lower quality, less sustainable modules from China. And so we'd like to change that. And public buyers can have really an important role. It varies from country to country, but it's estimated that between 20 to 50% of the procurement is impacted by public buyers and public authorities, either through auctions or direct tenders, but also in permits, for instance, for cities. So all important points. Now, how can we get public buyers across Europe to act? So, of course, this is a daunting task, and we're not here to. So we'd like to make a small contribution here in getting there. There can be up to 1 million public organizations in Europe, from schools to hospitals to cities and so on. And then the point is, how do we contact them, interest them, give them some insights, and then the tools so that they can act? So that's also some overarching where we want to end up. And that this is apparently with clearly with insights and tools. So what we'd like to and hope to develop in this community of practice is some generic presentations or infographics and possibly also webinars to collect interest. We'd also like to develop some further deeper analyses like market insights and best practices and white papers. And then also develop some tools, for instance, procurement criteria and tender templates, and also further guides to help public buyers to develop these PV projects. So this is some of the stuff that we want to work on. And maybe this is my last slide for now. So what we hope that members can also do and contribute to this community, how they can contribute is by basically sharing these best practices, if they have any, and we'll hear an example from Amsterdam, and also we'll hear from Cologne. And it can be also on working on these other topics. So yeah, that's for me the introduction. Over back to you, Dominic.
Fantastic, Michiel, thank you very much. We will now move on to hear what that looks and feels like from the perspective of participants of the community of practice. So Josje, I will hand over to you for your experiences of big buyers in general and the time that you've been within the sustainable solar PV community as well.
I hope you can see the presentation.
Not yet. Now we can, yes.
Okay. Maybe I first can hand over to my colleague, Uwe Kor.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
We can hear you loud and clear. Yep.
Okay. I don't know if you can see me, but it's not so important. I have only 30 seconds to speak, as Josie said. I'm from the International European Affairs Office, and actually we just inform our department about Eurocities, about their projects, about the forums and the working groups, and we take them at hand. We are the jack of all trades, and we do not interfere in the politics of our department. We started early in 2019 with the first row with heavy-duty vehicles, went on with it for the next period because the procurement was already a little bit lacking. And now we are with solar, and this is luckily Josie came into this group, and for the first time we have somebody from the law and procurement department. This is interesting for how to get cities and other buyers into the working group. Okay, this is what I wanted to say.
Yes, I'm taking over, but unfortunately the presentation is on automatically. I hope. No, it's not working as hoped for.
We see your presentation again. Oh,
yeah, but not the right slides.
Yeah.
Oh. Sorry. Do you see my presentation right now? Yes. Up for?
We do. We currently see it in not in presenter mode and on slide 4.
Oh, and in the presenter mode, it's not working. I don't know why. Next try.
There we go. We are, now in presenter mode, and we're, I think, on your second slide.
Yes, but I cannot go to the next. Why not? I think we are done now. I'll just start. Okay. Yes. First, a brief introduction in the city of Cologne and its climate goals, and then I go to our participation in the Big Buyer Solar. We got also a climate action strategy for to get climate neutral in 2035. We have to reduce our greenhouse gases by 9 million of tons carbon dioxide. And therefore we made this plan. And here you see the highlights where the city of administration itself can influence about 15% of this greenhouse gas reductions, and the rest has to come from the private sector. The strategy focuses on 5 main sectors. First, the built environment is including the public and the private buildings, the energy supply, our local economy, mobility and logistics, behavior education, and the civil society transformation. And when we take all planned actions or possible actions, we still have to compensate a slight remaining emissions. At the same time, we have to account for the slight increases of emissions expected from population growth and the new buildings we have to build. Here you see our climate action working plan. These are the actions that we are working on and we have planned for the next 2 years. They involve about 1.50 million tons of greenhouse gases, and these actions are for 63% of the city administration, and the rest is of the affiliated municipal companies. At the right side, you see the distribution of these climate action activities across the 5 main sectors. Then our climate action working plan on the solar, we are working in the 2 sectors, municipal buildings and energy supply. The city has over 1,700 municipal buildings. These include schools, libraries, sports halls, community centers, and other public facilities. Many of these buildings are several decades old, and unfortunately, the condition of their rooftop has been declining over the years, so they are in a rather poor shape. This is why we're not building lots of solar at the moment on the city roofs. This year we started our plan by inspecting 15 rooftops on the construction and the roof skins, and we are planning to build on the solar on the roofs for next years. Then a slight overview of our energy supplies actions. We already installed in the city, this private, mostly a little bit of public, 157 megawatts of rooftop solar panels. This has been installed already, and we have a huge potential on the city roofs. We have a digital public solar registry, which is a map open to everyone, where everybody can look on his rooftops and look how many, what are the possibilities for solar on their own roofs. We have identified 50 acres of open space solar to be installed. We are discussing also with private investors, and we have a municipal heating strategy to be developed and be published in next year. And we will have a 150 megawatt river heat pump to be installed. Then to the teams of solar. What have we done so far? Due to the participating in the Big Buyers Working Together solar group, we first, these over 1,700 municipal buildings are distributed among 12 departments within the city of Cologne. The city of Cologne is rather big. I have 25,000 colleagues, so these colleagues don't know each other, and we first grouped them together in a first workshop about building solar on the roofs, and a second workshop about the environmental and sustainable solar. This is a result of our participation in the Big Buy Solar Group. And we discussed the importance also from the sustainability and the social aspects of solar within these groups. Next, we plan to make sustainability also a core requirement in our municipal standards. When we buy solar, this should be environmental and social sustainable. We planned this also has to be decided by the city council, but we also adding at the moment the sustainable criteria, so we can meet up the higher environmental and social standards. We also prepared a detailed memo for outlining possibilities for installing photovoltaic systems on municipal buildings and areas in our city, because not all departments will be capable of installing and operating the solar themselves. Also, leasing the roofs is an option for us, and therefore we have to also define the criteria of sustainable solar. And finally, thanks to the colleagues in Berlin, we're also participating here in the working group. We could distribute the brochure developed by them to the best practices and successful examples they have on building with sustainable requirements. So this is the first steps we are taking as the city of Cologne, building sustainable solar on our roofs, city roofs. And yeah, in 1 year we already make some big steps, and hopefully we will be building the sustainable solar around next year. Yes, this was my presentation. Thanks, and I will hand over to Lucas. Oh, I did not. Yes, the last one.
Fantastic. Thank you so
Yes.
much. Really great to hear your overall strategy, how that kind of interplays with the ambitions of the sustainable solar community, the work that you've done so far, and the work that you're planning on doing as well in the future, and how that all ties in together. So thank you very much. And indeed, as you said, we will move straight on to Lucas from the city of Amsterdam. Lucas, if you'd like to share your screen and begin your presentation.
Hi, everyone. Yes, of course. Thank you, Dom, and everyone else. Let me see if I can share my screen. Has everyone seen it properly?
Perfect. Yep.
All right. Yes. So, like I said before, my name is Lucas Sloot. I'm a policy officer of solar energy for the city of Amsterdam, and since quite some years, we work on the goals of the municipality for the energy transition. So we want 550 megawatts installed capacity in 2030 and 1100 megawatts in 2040. But we do not only want quantity, we also want quality. In the last years, like presented by Michiel earlier, we've learned about the differences in the different producers of modules. Therefore, we now focus more on that part as well. We want more sustainable and more circular solar panels. And let me see how to go to the next slide. Yes, there we go. So here's a short overview of some of the projects that we have going on sustainable, circular, and fair solar, as we like to call it. We have a sustainable and less procurement policy. So our politicians introduced this policy last year, which basically means that everything we procure needs to be sustainable unless we can really argue that it is not possible. So that helps us also in the procurement of solar panels. And it's always a really different discussion, right? So you always need to talk to your colleagues, and everyone's like, usually people are like, but aren't solar panels sustainable anyway? And then you're like, no, they produce renewable energy, which is amazing, which is a sustainable practice. But the way the panels are produced can really differ amongst different producers. Then for really large projects above 1 million euros, we need to include carbon pricing in the budget. So that's a really new way of thinking. We really need to look at projects from the true pricing theory concept. Recently, we did a circular analysis, which is an analysis of this organization called Circular. They look at all existing law and legislation in your country, at your city level, at a national level, but also at European level, and see how existing legislation can help you make your product more circular, which is really cool. They identified a lot of different procurement tools as well. So I think there's a lot of interesting results. And now that I'm actually talking about this, I'm thinking maybe we should translate that to English and also share with you, because there might be differences between legislation in the Netherlands and in other European countries, but because procurement policy is a European thing, there might also be quite some overlap. So there you go. There you already see a good example of how this community can really help out each other. We also want 100% locally owned renewable energy. So when it's about communal bigger projects, our politicians want us to make it locally owned as much as possible. We introduced a sustainable solar subsidy recently. Not recently, more anymore. It was last year in August. So as Michiel presented earlier, these better, more sustainable solar panels that are available on the market already are a bit more expensive than the regular Chinese ones. So we give a bit of a subsidy to compensate for the extra higher price. And the subsidy is also part of an awareness and information campaign so that people become aware of this difference. And of course, part of circular economy is also reuse products as long as possible. And therefore, we have established a reuse chain within Amsterdam and within the Amsterdam metropolitan region. And we're now looking to do this also on a European level, as it makes sense to reuse solar panels in countries where the solar irradiance is higher than it is in the Nordic countries. And then last but not least, very important for this group, we are applying the sustainable and circular criteria in the solar templates for our next procurement for a batch of another 30 buildings, I believe, 30 roofs that we want to do now with as sustainable solar panels as possible. And that's why I was also really glad to hear about Josje and Uwe's presentation to see what they're doing right now, because our planning is also that in the beginning of 2026 we want to publish the tender, and right now we're preparing it. And like I said before, it's a really interesting discussion with your colleagues, because my colleagues from procurement look with a really different view at this than I do as a policy officer, of course. I'm just here to, we need more sustainable panels, and here are some tools to do it. And they're like, yes, but we want a lot of things, and we need to look at lots of different things. So it's really interesting to see how it goes. And yes, I'm really interested also to hear from Cologne, and other members of this community of practice, how it goes in their countries. Maybe we can help each other out. I'm not sure how much time I got left. I was told I don't have too much time, so please do interrupt me if I'm talking too long. I think I have just a few more slides. I'll be quick. I'm trying to talk quickly. Hopefully everyone does understand me though. So here's the list of sustainable solar producers that we had made. Michiel was involved in this, and we basically created a few categories. So category A is the most sustainable one, B a little bit less, and C a bit even less, but also still better than the mainstream panels. So the most sustainable ones get more subsidy than the less sustainable ones. Yeah, here's a sort of here's an infographic of our reuse chain in Amsterdam. So we test all the used panels. The ones that cannot be reused, they go to recycling, and the ones that can be reused are cleaned, tested, inspected, and then they go to the storage until there's a project where we can reassemble them either locally or in another European country, hopefully soon. Also, if you are interested in participating in this European project for reused panels, please let me know. We are still working on the consortium building, and we want to apply for a live CET call by the European Union, which closes on the 23rd of September. So we're quite busy with that at the moment. Oh, and then the procurement template. This is the one that Michiel made. I'm not sure if it's the newest one though, Michiel, because you have been working on a more updated version, I guess. But it's just for you guys to have an idea what it looks like. Michiel worked really hard, and he made lots of different tabs with different where you can introduce the award criteria. And of course, it's a flexible template. That's why it's called a template, I guess. And you can add all the criteria that you want. Here you see the carbon footprint of the solar panels, the technical lifespan, avoidable toxic materials, PFAS and everything. And of course, you can award them as much weighting as you prefer. Yes, and then this last slide is how we try to introduce a bit more of the circular economy concept to our procurement as well, because of course, circular economy, sustainability, they are concepts that are intertwined, but they are also a bit different. So here we try to introduce the R letter more into procurement. I'm not going to go through everything, it's a bit too much for now. But if people are interested, we can talk about it later, or Ike can send around my presentation and you can have a look at it with time. So that's it. If there's any questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for your attention, everyone.
Amazing, Lucas, thank you very much. If there are questions for Lucas, post them in the chat, or once we finish the presentations, we will have a chance for question and answer, and you can ask them then. But it leads very nicely into our last presentation. Lucas just shared some examples of templates that have been created by Michiel, but also, in addition, there are guidelines which Michiel also created and have been translated into the various European languages, and we will have Michiel's presentation now about those guidelines, and well, yeah, I will hand over, Michiel, to you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Dom. And indeed, Lucas, great your slides to show how it's being brought into practice. That is really cool, and it's fantastic that this is actually used. I just also saw a question from Václav Mucha. Sorry if I don't pronounce your name correctly, but yes, so this Excel that Lucas showed, and also this template, is accessible through the website, and sort of the link for the Public Buyers website will be shared. The Big Buyers Working Together website later on after the meeting, but that's indeed right. So it's also translated in all these languages, so that's pretty cool. So you can have a look at these criteria and all this stuff in detail. Let me just go briefly through this presentation. So this presentation is meant to just show a couple of examples of what we're working on in the group, and also about these criteria. Like Dominic and Lucas were saying, so we developed this for the Dutch government. Sort of, I work for a part of the Dutch government, and we have developed this sort of template in Excel with all these various minimum requirements and also some award criteria. And we developed this during the past few years, and we developed this based on several existing PV projects and tenders for them. On market analysis, we did extensive literature analysis, and we interviewed a lot of experts. So a lot of effort has gone into creating this template. And if you take a look at it, you would see that most of the criteria are about safety and quality. And there's just a couple of things that we wanted to add for sustainability. But those are, at this moment, just a few criteria, but most of them are about safety and quality. Because, of course, that's the basis that everybody wants to have a good, safe and good quality PV project. Also, this template, it discusses PV modules. It also has criteria for inverters and the electric system, mounting, and there's even some about maintenance and how to do this, and operation and monitoring. So it's quite extensive. It has been translated, like Lucas already said, in all EU languages, and it can be downloaded. So that would be great if people can take a look at it. We've also developed for the Dutch market a couple of documents to help public buyers. And one document is about the preparatory phase. So how do you start with a PV project? And are there some advisors that you can think of, some lists of advisors? There's some process steps, and so that's also generally found helpful. This document is also translated in at least English, and then we have two other documents that haven't been translated yet. So that's something that will come later this year. So one document is about how to write the template using this template. It's a pretty brief document. It has some tips. And then there's a third, more extensive document that explains into more detail all these sustainability aspects. So it dives into the carbon footprint and so on. So the goal here for this community, what we'd like to, maybe not a goal, but what we'd like to distribute and basically discuss these criteria. And it would be, we don't want to have a situation where we sort of have one set of criteria and public buyers can make their own choices, and all buyers, and as to which criteria do you use in templates. But it is, of course, good to discuss these among one another. And the more people use the same criteria, the easier also for the market, for PV module producers and for installers and others who are responding to these tenders. So that would be also a important purpose. And now we really like to get to feedback. And of course, not everybody will have the resources to provide detailed feedback on all these criteria, and we can work in separate groups. So there's, for instance, now a small group that is looking into forced labor, and they share the results with the wider group every so often. So that's also how we try to work. Now, I just want to give very briefly 3 examples, and I'll just go through it quickly. So for instance, of these environmental and sustainability aspects, for instance, there's the carbon footprint. Mainstream PV modules have quite a big carbon footprint of around 1,000 kilograms per kilowatt peak in carbon. And on the other hand, there's these ultra low carbon PV modules, and they have a 4 times lower carbon footprint. And the reason that this is important, for instance, in the Netherlands, is that due to the situation we have in Holland, the carbon payback time of the standard modules can become quite long, and maybe in the same order of magnitude as the lifetime. So it's really important to choose these more low carbon PV modules. And that's also why we have these criteria. So we did this market analysis. Lucas showed a slide, and we try to update this also occasionally. And already what was surprising is that even some Chinese modules, they make a lower carbon module that is barely 1 cent more expensive. So there's already also very low cost, better options that are available. Some of the things is carbon limits. So what sort of limit do you pose? And in France, already for 7 or 8 years, they have these limit of 550 kilograms of carbon per kilowatt peak. In Holland, we have tried to adopt the same criteria for public buyers, and this is voluntary, I must add. Now, this is also something that we hope in the future to discuss within this community with various public buyers, to say, okay, which LCA method should you use and which limit should we use, and could we have a roadmap for it? So it would be really helpful to share some thoughts and ideas within this community. And we hope that that's something that you might also do. As a second example, there's the avoidable harmful substances, PFAS, lead, antimony. I won't go into the details here of the slide now, but the message is really that these are avoidable and low cost or zero cost alternatives are available. So this is why in the voluntary template, we have set the requirement is PFAS free, and you get bonus points if it's lead free or antimony free in the award criteria. And maybe we can move up the ambition level in the coming few years. And this is also something to discuss within the group. Finally, forced labor. There's been various initiatives in the United States, in Europe, in the UK, in Australia also. However, this is not, especially the European initiatives are not really helping a whole lot, is our impression. So what we'd also like to do, and a couple of the members are trying to collaborate on this, is that we try to formulate some criteria on forced labor. And possibly there are different types of criteria and different ambition levels. And that's something that we also are working on. And if there are results, of course, then we will share it within the wider community. Yeah, so that's my last slide. So back to you, Dominic.
Thank you very much. And hopefully what you've heard there is, well, interesting topics that we're working on, and things that align with the challenges that you're facing and the current questions that you are grappling with as you seek to procure solar installations, but also an opportunity to be involved and to be discussing with the likes of our panelists today, within the confines of the community of practice, how some of those questions can be answered and whether your experiences can help solve those questions. So a really interesting opportunity, hopefully, for you to see the types of work that we are planning and already working on, and the opportunities for you to be involved as well. You know, take for example the carbon footprinting question, those thresholds, the different methods for life cycle costing. Maybe you've worked on these things in the past. Maybe it's also a challenge that you face and would benefit from being part of the community to help shape some of the answers. So I would encourage you to consider whether joining the community and helping us and benefiting from some of these discussions would be interesting for you as a public buyer. We have enough time, I suppose, for questions. I think there have been some in the chat. Some have been answered directly. There have been questions as to whether the data and information that's already been shared is accessible. It's worth saying that lots of this is already publicly available. I shared some links to the criteria and the Sustainable PV Project Guide, which has been translated, which is currently available. So you can find them there. And yes, we will share the slides as well of the presentations. I don't know if there are any questions for Lucas or Josia on the actual content of their presentations and the work that's being done by each of those cities, or for Michiel on the functioning of the group, anything on the his opinion on sort of leadership of the sustainable solar PV community. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask or raise your hand. If not, and whilst you're thinking maybe of your question, we will share the presentations that you've received today and the recording of this as well. In the chat, I've just posted contact details for me and Delphina and the Big Buyers general email address. If you're interested in joining the Sustainable Solar PV community, you can contact us. We'd encourage you to do so. We look forward to being in touch and seeing how you can play a role and contribute to the community. We have next Friday a community meeting at 11 o'clock on Friday the 16th of May. And this will be an opportunity for current members to come together and share their updates and take part in some of that exchange that really makes the community valuable and worthwhile. If you're interested and today has piqued your interest, then this would be a really good opportunity for you to come along and firsthand see how that operates and how you can contribute. I haven't seen any hands, but I'm not sure whether I have visibility of hands. I don't know, Delphina, if there are any hands raised or if there are any questions in the chat. Alternatively, maybe Michiel, Josia, Lucas, if there is anything final that you feel has not yet been said that you'd like to say, I'll open the floor to you once more.
Yeah, maybe it's indeed good to just add a couple of things on how we practically collaborate. And I think it's something that I forgot to mention. So we try to, I think, have 5 or 6 webinars with the community each year, and also 1 or 2 live events. So these are sort of how we can meet and share some results and outcomes and updates. And besides this, of course, there are smaller groups collaborating and exchanging emails and so on. But I think that's just for practical terms how this works.
Yeah, a really good point. Thank you. Yes, and those are the kind of expectations for participation, but equally, if you're interested, get in touch and we can outline in a little bit more detail as well. But thanks for adding.
Maybe I
Okay.
have one last question to the group. We are still looking for partners in our European projects in Portugal and Greece. So if any Greek or Portuguese local governments are represented here today, please get in contact with me. And if you're interested, of course. Thanks.
Lucas, I think you might be in luck. I think we were joined today by some Portuguese colleagues. So who knows, hopefully. And we will share your contact details so they can get in touch if needs be.
Thanks.
So we will end there. I will wish you a fantastic rest of your Friday, a great weekend. Thank you for your attention and participation, and hope to hear from you and to have you as part of our community going forwards. So thank you very much, everyone.